Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, as you can see, we are taking a first-hand look at the Tier 10 Czechoslovakian heavy tank, the VZ-55, a vehicle that I'm quite excited to try out. I haven't really gotten much practice in it, but we're going to be talking about its special mechanic. We're going to be talking about its armor profile and how I think the tank's going to play. Is it balanced? Well, let's find out. Up against us, this is a training room on the test server, so we can see that we are fighting a Minotauro, an M6 show, T100 LT, and a T110E3. We're on the brand new map, which is Lagoon, a very, very cool map. I've already figured out which appears to be heavy side is off right next to the base capture, as you can see. Now, something that's very nice about the VZ is it does feature gun depression. It also features an absolutely crazy accurate gun, as you just watched me pen the side of that minnow there. The gun, when you are going less than 15 kilometers per hour, has insanely good accuracy, as you can see. Good enough that you are always fully aimed in. Now, we did get hatched. This vehicle does feature a very, very weak hatch, which it allows opponents to shoot right at it. Right now, well, we can't really pen the E3s. There's no point to even try penetrating that tank, but we can pen the Yo. So, ooh, we were close. We almost had a shot in the Yo. There he is. Hello, good sir. And bonk. Look at that. Absolutely crazy that this vehicle has almost no dispersion when moving. Now, the hatch, as you can see, even though it is a weak spot, is not an awfully bad weak spot due to the fact that you can still hide it quite easily. Again, look at that dispersion. As I said, as long as you're going less than 15 kilometers per hour, you have basically zero dispersion, which is kind of insane when you think about it. It means that turning your turret or shooting at a vehicle like that 200 LT, look at that on movement. That is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. So, yeah, there's some crazy things this tank has going for it. There you go, another great example there, cutting directly through that Yo. Now, this vehicle's reverse speed is only 13, which means that, as you can see, at full speed on reverse, this mechanic is always engaged, which means that you shouldn't have to worry at all about your balloon getting bad. It's actually incredible just what this tank's mechanics really entail that you can do. So let's aim in. Aw, we did hit that hatch. We hit it dead on. Unfortunately, didn't pen, but we can see again that my hatch is getting quite riddled with shells. So this tank does have weak spots, which I actually think is good. I like it when Wargaming somewhat balances vehicles with weak spots, but not, you know, overly bad weak spots that allow it to be always dealt with. That shell just went from here to Timbuktu. A bit unfortunate. Now, I will say the penetration on this vehicle, which we'll take a look at after this game, is very, very nice. It's almost enough to cut through just about anything you'll be dealing with. Even though it is APCR, it is ridiculously high APCR. Now, another thing I do want to point out is that your on-movement dispersion is terrible on this vehicle. In fact, it's some of the worst on-movement dispersion in the game. What that means is that this tank is incredibly accurate until it's incredibly inaccurate, which is kind of weird to think about. Now, actually, crazy enough, even though this thing has about 350 millimeters of APCR pen, we actually did not manage to penetrate the minnow, which I'm a bit surprised. But we were easily able to cut through the side of that E3 loading premium, and with that, all we're going to do now is push this enemy Minotauro, which we should be able to get a pretty easy pen into. Now, once you go slow, as you can see, your aiming reticle goes incredibly small, so that's kind of how this tank is going to be played. It's not going to be a YOLOing tank, it's going to be a get hull down and hold that ridge line. You can imagine working maps like Canyon Hill, where you just get hull down, you're able to sit still for a lot of the games. The gun is going to work incredibly well. The armor is also very, very solid on this tank, as we just saw. So if we take a look at the stats really quick, actually, let me ready up so we don't need to slow anybody down, but if we take a look at the stats while we wait for this next battle, the dispersion is okay. It's the same as an IS-4. It's 0.344. It's not good, it's not bad, but the great thing is that, as I said, when you're sitting still, you always have 100% of that dispersion aimed in. The aiming time is quite good at 3.6 seconds, so that's fantastic. The pen is 272 on the standard and 346 on the premium. It's actually ridiculously good penetration, and when you add that into the fact that this vehicle has 470 damage per shot, all the values are actually really good on the gun. Even when you are driving it on move, even though its dispersion gets a lot larger than you'd want it to be because of its terrible on move values, you'll notice that it's not the worst in the world. It's still very comparable to an IS-7. Now, when it comes to this tank's top speed, it sits at a top speed of 38 kilometers per hour, which you can see we're somewhat reaching here. The tank is not slow by any means on acceleration, so even though it's not the fastest vehicle, it's plenty to get the job done. Not only that, but we're going to break into the armor after this gameplay and showcase just how good that armor is. It's actually quite solid. People don't realize how strong it is, but it's kind of like a mix between a 5A and I can't really compare it to anything else, but there's definitely some 5A aspects in it, which is what I would definitely compare it mostly to. You can see right there a fantastic example of where the tank is always aimed in when you're using it, which is nice. The only problem is we got absolutely bonked by about everybody on the enemy team to showcase that, but it's fine because this is a training room. Again, a great example of the hatch on this tank being a weak spot. We've been pendant it twice. It's just a fantastic way to really show that it does have weak spots, and if you're not completely hull down, like we've allowed the enemy to get into a hull down position here, it's very hard to actually use this tank. It's only 7 degrees of gun depression. If it was 8, it would be a lot more flexible on a lot of ridge lines, but 7 doesn't allow you to be truly as flexible as you'd probably want to be, especially with that hatch that does showcase. So you got to be quite careful at certain moments. At this point in time, though, we're going to drive right up here, and we're going to see if we can pen the C3. There you go. A perfect example of this vehicle's super high APCR pen. Because the E3 hatch is actually spaced armor, it's much easier to cut through that hatch, especially if you're using a shell like this that is APCR. Now we can see that minnow in the back, and a great example of that crazy good accuracy. You can see how quick I was able to aim in because of that almost zero dispersion and easily slap that HE into the rear of that minnow for a 610 roll. It is actually a really solid gun. There you go. Nice roll into that E3, finishing him off. And yeah, I gotta say, this tank seems very solid on paper. The alpha is absolutely fantastic. Not only is the alpha great, but the armor is incredibly strong. The mobility is not bad at all, and that special mechanic is going to allow this tank to be incredible in so many situations. Look at this APCR pen. I mean, it's crazy good APCR pen. You're not going to struggle against anything. 350 APCR, I would say, is equivalent to about 374 heat because of the fact you do got to realize it has shell normalization. The only thing that you won't have is as much angle penetration values. It sounds kind of weird to say that, but heat can penetrate up to 85 degrees of angles, where APCR can only do 75 or 72. It's somewhere around that area. So that is the only thing you will have to keep in mind. But apart from that, fantastic pen. Overall, the tank seems really solid. I have to be real. Not a bad battle, 2,500 damage, especially because we were only fighting, what, 4 opponents that game? Yeah, so not a bad result at all, and a fantastic way to showcase the capabilities of the VZ. The final thing I did want to talk about when it comes to this tank is the armor, and I figured the best way to do that is to actually pull up the armor profile on Armor Inspector, so let me do that very quickly. There you go. So this is the armor that we were just using. The upper plate is ridiculous. You can see it. It's 445 to 400 and whatever thick. This is without enhanced armor. If you put on enhanced, honestly, I don't really see a reason to. I would just run without enhanced and put on hit points because the upper plate and the turret are so thick normally that nothing's ever going to cut through it. So running enhanced armor isn't really going to change all too much. So that's what I would say on my advice. We can see, though, the upper plate is ridiculously strong. And using it hull down, it becomes even better. That little weak spot that was on the center is now going to be auto ricochets for any standard ammunition. So you're going to have to load premium ammo. Now, if you are loading premium, like for example the IS-4's heat, yeah, you can cut through that little weak spot on the center. But the IS-4 is a weak spot like that as well, and we can see that on the center as well right there. So it's kind of back and forth, and the IS-4's is definitely weaker than the VZ, so honestly, I don't really think this is much of a weak spot on the center of the hull. Chances of hitting that are much harder than hitting that hatch, so that's what I would really suggest to go for. Now we can see, even on flat ground, that upper plate is non-pervious to heat. IS-4 heat with Cali. It is that thick. We can see 556 against heat shells. So when you're using this vehicle hull down, it really doesn't matter. Its armor is incredible. Now there are some weak spots next to the gun mantlet, as we can see about 250, so you're going to have to load heat. AP is going to be really hard to penetrate, but it's really almost not worth it to shoot heat at the cheeks on this tank's turret because this is all spaced. You can see it's not penetrable with anything, and this is all spaced, which is also not penetrable with anything, especially when you have heat shells like the IS-4 carries. So you're not going to penetrate the turret essentially when it's hull down. You got one spot that you can take apart, and that is the hatch. And that is a very big weak spot. If you aim correctly and you don't hit this little bit of space here, you're going to cut directly through that hatch and go right into the tank. So yeah, it's definitely got some weak spots, and it's not hard to pen. It's only about 212 thick. So overall, that's not hard to deal with. Now the roof of this tank, I have no clue what the thickness is. Okay, you're not going to be overmatching that. That's actually nice. The Skoda T56, for example, the tier 8 does have an overmatchable roof. It's very weak, but this tank has no problem there. Now, when it comes to the underbelly, yes, you can penetrate the underskirts of the tracks, although hitting that is going to be very tricky because it only has 7 degrees of gun depression, so it's not going to be very easy to hit that. Side armor-wise, it's not great at side scraping. It does have some troll angle bits here, but as you can see, it's only about 250, and once it starts to angle out here, it's not actually great, so it's not going to be fantastic at side scraping unless you're really, really angling it hard. Side armor is pretty weak, though, overall, only about 90 mils thick, which means that if you're actually with a 150 millimeter cannon, for example, an Object 268, you can actually penetrate the sides of this tank. If you're able to squeeze it in between the tracks, or in between this little bit here, you can pen the tank. And you can even possibly pen the side of the tank at certain angles, as we can see. So, yeah, armor's not great on the tank. It's not the thickest by any means. It's 95 on the sides. The rear is only 67, and the back of the turret's the same. So, again, 150 guns like the 268 carries can go right through the back of the tank on the turret and the hull. So if you are in a big caliber gun and you see this tank's back of the turret, you can either shoot at the hull, as you can see at certain angles, or just go right through the turret. It's actually not that hard to do at all. Either way, armor-wise, the tank seems pretty strong. I mean, frontally, it's incredible. You can see that. But to balance that out, the tank is very poor on traverse, and its traverse speed is only 13. So it's a pretty well-balanced tank, actually, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about the VZ55, but I have to say, overall, the Tier 10 looks more than capable, and as of right now, it actually seems pretty balanced. I mean, yeah, the mechanic is really good, but I wouldn't say it's the most broken mechanic out there. You still have to be really slow, and at that point, a lot of tanks you'll probably be aimed in to begin with. I mean, I could drive an IS-4 or even a 5A with the Alpha, and the 5A not only has more mobility than the VZ55, but it also has way better dispersion, way better DPM, it's got a better turret, and the side armor is actually troller, in my opinion, plus you can't be HE'd anywhere on the sides. So when you add that into aspect, actually, I'd say the 5A in a lot of situations is just better, apart from the penetration difference. But yeah, overall, I really can't say the VZ's overpowered tank. I think it's pretty well balanced right now. The only thing I would change is make the reverse speed 15. But that's it. Maybe make the top speed 40 just because I like clean, even numbers. But either way, the tank looks pretty nice. I have to be honest. It looks really good in general. I hope the Legendary Camo Wargaming comes out is going to look sick. But yeah, the tank looks nice. Plays kind of like what I'd expect it to. I don't know if it'll be a comp tank. It's an interesting vehicle on that question. I don't personally think it will be very competitive in the comp scene. Like, the armor is very good hull down, but it has a couple weak spots, like the hatches we've seen. The lower plate's very big. The mobility's not the best, and because of that, I think just the IS-4 is a better option for a lot of situations. So, yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.